So today our agenda is we're going to talk about why you're so important, how to foster education at home, a formula for success, brain development, mindset, supporting your student, and then we will close. So first of all, you as a parent matter most in your students' education because you're the #1 predictor as to whether or not they're going to be successful. It doesn't matter what kind of car you drive, doesn't matter what zip code you're in, your involvement really does drive your student to be more successful. So kudos to you for being here today. So the type of involvement that you have really matters. So there's specific ways that you as a family can help support your students. First of all is to supervise your students' learning. And what that looks like is really engaging usually with teachers at school and principals if necessary to really help support your students. Set high expectations for your students. Foster an environment of reading, really helping your student become an active reader. That means that when you read something, you're reading it to really gain the information that's in it. You're looking for more than just skimming through it, right? You want all the details, and to be able to regurgitate that information is really helpful for your students to have that skill. Okay? So the very first thing I'm going to say is, son, please stop running through the house. Please. Okay. So the first thing is to give you and your kids grace. As you can see, you have to have grace. So taking breaks whenever you need it to lower not only their frustration, but also your frustration. You know yourself and you know exactly how you're feeling. If you're feeling anxious and irritated that you need to take a break, it's really important for you to recognize that and to do it, because it also helps your student recognize it in themselves and either do it themselves or ask for a break, right? We're modeling how we need to behave to our students, and that's really important. If we know we need to take a break, right? And you're not required to know everything. You're not required to remember geometry or any of those things. I know I don't. So using the different tools that we have at our hands, we have Google, that we can Google things really easy as parents to find it. If one of our kids has a question, Googling it, using Khan Academy to find out or figure out how to do something, right? Trusting your parent gut or intuition. Really important that you are paying attention to what you feel like is happening with your student. If you need to reach out to a teacher to ask for more tools or to connect with someone, it's really important to do so. Giving kids some choice when they're creating the schedule. It gives them a sense of being in charge, which is really important right now. They don't feel like they have that. Okay. And knowing your student's currency. I say that because it's really important for you to know what are some drives that you can have for your student, okay? For example, in my household, I don't normally give my students the ability to get, or my kids, to get on and be on video games for long periods of time, right? So one of the things that I did is I did their schedule, which we're going to talk about schedule soon. I did their schedule, and then I said, if you want to work a little ahead each day, then you can have Friday off because you've already worked through all the things that you need to work through. And in that day off, you can have some free time on video games, which was a huge incentive for them. And they love the idea, and they're getting through things quicker than they usually do. Doesn't mean that they don't have breakdowns. Doesn't mean that they don't lose it. They do. And just so you're aware, I'm not a perfect parent. I'm just one that likes to communicate with other parents about some things that work, right, for us, that are tangible. And knowing what the incentives are that your kids really want to do helps you. It gives you a tool, right? But talk to them about it if you don't know what it is. And then, of course, it's based on reason, right? We wouldn't give our children $100 every time they do well, right? So it's really based on what they need, okay? So these challenges that we have now because of this situation, kids are facing the fact that they're used to leaving the household to go to school. They're used to the four walls. They're used to a teacher that's not you. They're used to other kids being around them, designated space and time. These things are really impacting them, right? It's a huge change for them. They're used to being around friends all the time, right? And they're one of the biggest things, they're used to their house being a hangout spot, not a learning space, right? And for parents too, we have some of the same challenges, right? We're used to our kids going to school. We're used to, if we work outside the home, for us to drop them off or for them to take the bus and then us going to work, right? Now we have a combined space of our work if we work from home and their work, their schoolwork, right? And now we're a teacher too, right? We're the one that they're turning to right now. That's the immediate person that they're turning to for support in what they need to get done. And then balancing not only the work that we're doing from home, if we do work from home, but their schoolwork too, right? And of course, we're used to this being our hangout spot too, right? We're used to being able to like let down our hair at home. And so now it's like restructuring everything that we're normally used to, right? So how can we face these challenges? Well, we need to do some shifting. So we need to mentally shift at home. Students and parents both need to have designated workspace, right? If that's the kitchen table or the dining room table, that's fine. I didn't choose to do that personally because it's not a big enough space for them and they would fight over it. So keep that in mind. I had some extra tables that I was able to, my living room looks like, you know, a campground. So it's one of those things. It's like, if you do what you need to do, right? But designated workspace is really important. And then dedicated school work hours. So making sure you're not working late into the night. If that's, you know, if you need to work during the day and those are blocked off hours that you have to work and you can't really help support your student during that time frame, and then you work in the evening, that's fine. But you need to have that conversation so they know what to expect, right? And then having time without distractions. Like if there's anything going on in the household, my youngest one tends to be more attentive to those things. Required teacher prep, what I mean by that is that you spending time to prepare what's going to be happening for the week and also for the day before. Taking notes if you need to. For myself, it's really important for me to have little notes so that I know what's coming up next. And then communication. Communicating with your student is very, very important. Letting them know that this isn't forever and that you're both accountable to making sure that they're getting the work done that they need to get done so that they're successful. So how can you help organize? So reviewing your child's work for the week. I do this on Sunday night. It just depends upon, you know, how your brain works, how you want to work this, but I go through all the work that they need to complete and I write down a schedule, right? So that I know what they need to do. Since I work from home and I know that there are others on the line that Andrea also works from home and Devaney does it, but Devaney has 3 kids and one of them is special education. So her schedule looks a little different than mine does. And we're gonna look at literally what our schedules look like in the next slide. So it really is based on what you need, right? So I have blocks of time that I might be doing things like this, like a Zoom meeting, right? And instead of it being a time frame that they're doing some work independently, depending upon what I'm working on, it could be that they're watching an educational show and they're reporting back to me what they watched and what it was about, because that was some time for them to really kind of let go and watch something, but at the same time, it's giving them some education at the same time, right? So I also overview the night before what's expected. I go through and write on each paper what's due, highlight it based on what day of the week it's due, so it's really quick and easy for me the next day. but it really depends upon what your district has given to you for you to get through, right? And then, of course, it's important for you to review it daily before the day starts with what they need to get done, and give directions based on your child's age and abilities. And like I said, for parents that work at home, it's prep, at least for me, is really, really important. And how I handle that do not disturb time because I'm in a meeting can impact how long the day goes, right? So here's some schedules. So my schedule is on the left, Devaney's schedule is in the middle, and Andrea's schedule is on the right. And you can see they're very different, right? Andrea's got it scheduled all the way through bedtime, right? And then Devaney's got it scheduled with like blocks of time for each exact course. I have it based on how many minutes should they be doing each thing. And it really is dependent upon how old your student is, and you know what kind of schedule you have to have at home. Like I have to have one that's a little bit more flexible based on what I do, right? But just to give yourself some extra grace and really understanding when it comes to how much education time your students really need every day. So you should not create a schedule that's going to be like 7 or 8 hours worth of learning time. That's way too much for your kids. And the fact is, when they go to school in those 4 walls, that whole time is not directly related to education. There are other things that are going on, right? And so concentration blocks for kids, you take their age and you multiply it by 2 to 5 minutes. Okay, and that's about how long they can concentrate. So for example, a 7-year-old would be about 14 to 35 minutes. And so that's how I created my schedule. You don't see anything over 20 minutes for my youngest, right? Because it's right in that age range for him, okay? And he gets to choose what he does next, right? So that gives him some of that choice and control. And that works for him, but it wouldn't necessarily work for every student. So one of the things I'll do is I'm going to create some schedules that you guys can like manipulate and change to how you want them so that you can have something that's tangible to use. The other point is to really make sure that your students are having recess time, right? We want them to be able to have some time to play. You know, if it's nice enough outside and you have yard, you know, that the social distancing issue isn't going to be an issue, then it's a great time for them to be able to get out and have a few minutes away. And, you know, I have this thought of having my boys create a rap, like to develop a rap, and then have them perform it and me record it. Like that would be a thing for them to do that they, that they could do on their downtime to just kind of have fun with. So that was something that I thought of. Doesn't mean that they'll do it for me, but some other home tactics, really easy things that you can do to help with learning. You do have a library card, but you can download books, and you can also download audiobooks. And listen to those. And you need to set a routine for reading. My kids like to read before they go to bed. So in addition to the things that they need to read during the day, that's like set aside for them to read before they go to bed. Utilizing creative time as a break with continued learning. So maybe board games, you have to read in order to understand what you need to do, right? Can be an option. Brain teasers. One of my favorite things is story cubes. If you haven't heard of those, they're not that expensive. They're about $10. You can get them through Amazon right now. But they're 9 cubes, and they have pictures on them with words like aliens, castles. Anyway, you roll the dice, and you have to create a story based on what you roll. Right, so it gets your imagination going, and at the same time you're telling a story, right? And that can be a game that you play or your kids play together, right? Also, cooking together is a great way for you to use math and comprehension. I did this with my boys the other day. They actually know how to turn the oven on. They know not to turn it on without me knowing. But we made cookies, and now they know how to make cookies. They had to use math, of course. Like if I say this is a third of a cup, how many of these do I have to have and to make a cup? You know, just those simple things can really be engaging for them. So I wanted to bring mindsets into the conversation because as parents, we grew up in a fixed mindset, and our kids have been learning growth mindset. So with fixed mindset, all of us parents have grown up in fixed. I can guarantee it because the book that is called Mindset wasn't released until 2006. So I like to look at fixed mindset versus growth mindset in a really easy way. So if you were to learn to play piano, you would have to have a growth mindset. Reason being is because you're going to fail multiple times before you actually get the skill of playing the piano, right? You have to keep going. So failure is an opportunity to grow, right? I'm going to learn how to do this song, right? And it keeps you going. Fixed mindset, you would fail at playing a song on the piano and you'd be done. You wouldn't continue because you'd say to yourself, I'm just not good at it, right? Because no one has that skill set at birth, unless you're a savant, which we don't have very many of those. You cannot play the piano just right away, right? So with growth mindset, it really gives us the tenacity and the perseverance to continue on and to continue learning, because that is part of it. Failure is part of learning, right? You continue on, you press on. And so we need to, as parents, we need to make sure that we're communicating with our children in a growth mindset way. And there's some specific things that you can do. So supporting a growth mindset.
Darcelina, I would just chime in with the growth mindset thing. It's as simple as like with math. I've had a lot of parents say, I'm fourth grade teacher. I don't know the math. I don't know how to do the fractions. I can't teach them how you're teaching them. And it's okay to admit that to your child and say, I'm not sure how your teacher is doing this. Let's explore. Let's watch this YouTube video and figure it out. Or using words like, I bet if we looked at it a little closer, and if I showed you my way, maybe we can figure it out together. Or just using words that aren't, I'm not good at math. I don't know what I'm doing. Right. I've never been good at math. Those kinds of words will rub off on your kiddo, and then they'll use words, and that's having a fixed mindset instead of I can do this. It's going to be tough. I might have to take a break. I can come back to it later. I'll get through it. I can do it. Just that perseverance is really important for the growth mindset.
Right. I was actually going to say it's important how we're talking about ourselves, because our kids learn how to see their world based on what we say about ourselves, right? So it's really important that we're communicating, like, I'm not good at ... We have to change that to, I have to try harder because I know I'm going to get there, right? And it's really, you're right, it's very important because they will hear us say those words and we will set them up to say those words to themselves, right? So encouraging your student to try new things, because it's really important for them to look at, like, for example, there are things that I didn't know that I would like to do when I was younger. If I would have tried them, I would have liked them much more and for a longer period of time. But I also want to say it's really important for kids to try it more than once, right? Because if I try to play soccer for the very first time and it's raining outside and it's really yucky weather, I might not like soccer because I chose to do it during that time frame. For me to go back and try it again, I might like it the next time, right? So let your student know that you believe in them. You believe that they can do this. And you need to encourage them during the challenges. It's really important. It's just like when they were trying to learn how to tie their shoes, right? It's so similar to that. how we encourage them to, like, nope, you're going to get it. I know you're going to get it, right? I had to do it so many times, and that's the same thing, sharing those experiences that we had. You know how long it took me to tie my shoes? You know, that's really important information for them to know that, oh, it's not just me, right? Other people experience this too. It's so important. Emphasizing moments of frustration. And I would say one of the biggest things is to praise the effort over the achievement, right? You tried so hard versus you got an A. Because the next time when they try hard, if they get a B, then they feel like they failed, right? So saying you tried so hard, you did so well because you tried hard, not bringing into what grade they got, right? And then describing to them what you see when they persevere, when they get through it, and making sure that you keep that in your back pocket for the next time that they need to hear it. Remember the time that you didn't think that you were going to get through history, and you did ... and you did so well because you worked so hard? Having those things in your back pocket is really important. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your child's brain. I bring this conversation in because I think it's important for us to kind of go back to what it was like for us when we were growing up, and the struggles that we had, because it helps us to be empathetic towards our kids, right? But it's also really important for us to know where they're at in brain development. And that our kids' brains don't function like an adult brain. It's really important for us to recognize. Sensory motor stage is birth to 2 years. Children learn about the world through senses, sticking things in their mouth, manipulation of objects, right? Pre-operational stage, ages 2 to 7. During this stage, children develop memory and imagination. And they're also able to understand things symbolically and to understand the ideas of past and future, okay? The concrete operational stage, ages 7 through 11, children become more aware of external events, as well as feelings of others than their own. They become less egocentric and begin to understand that not everyone shares their thoughts, beliefs, or feelings. Right? So that's really important to notice that ages birth to 7 are more egocentric, right? It's more about them, okay? And then formal operational stages, ages 11 and older. During this stage, children are able to use logic to solve problems, view the world around them, and plan for the future. The other thing that's really important to note is that, let's say your student isn't doing very well in reading. That does not mean that without practice, it's that fixed mindset versus growth mindset concept. Without practice, they're not going to get better. It's not true. They can continue to practice and gain that skill and get better at it, whatever the skill is, okay? And then also adolescent brain is ages 10 through 24. Where the frontal lobe is not fully developed. So it's really important for you to remember what it was like when you were a kid and what you experienced and how you thought the world was ending when certain things were happening. And so giving a little grace, especially in this time frame for them, because it is a struggle. It's a change. It's a huge change. Think of our kids that are graduating this year. They don't get a graduation for some of them, right? They don't get to have prom. They don't get to have those experiences that they were really excited for. So you're going to see some behaviors around that. And it's okay. And it's okay for you to reach out and talk to them about it. Okay? So let's talk a little about screen time. Now, I bring up screen time only because our kids are away from school. They're going to have extra exposure to screen time, and that's okay in what is going on, and you make those decisions for your household. But I want to make sure that you know that if you notice that your child is having excessive behaviors and you've kind of ruled out what's going on, this, you know, what kind of situation we're in, You might consider that it could be screen time. I know for my youngest, he gets very behavioral, very fragile if he's had too much screen time. And the other reason I bring this up is because we want to make sure that our kids that are older that have a lot of contact with social media, a lot of us are diving heavily into social media because we feel a lack of connection with others. And so it doesn't mean that cyberbullying isn't still happening. So I say that just to make sure that you're connecting with your kids. If you're seeing that they're kind of retreating, if they're older kids retreating into their room and not really communicating like they usually do, they're showing some symptoms of maybe depression or sadness, make sure you're checking in with them. And if you do have access to their social media, just checking things out and making sure that they're doing okay. These are guidelines for screen time. But again, if you have an 18-month-old and you're trying to work at the same time, there's no judgment, right? We're not going to judge each other right now. We're all in a scenario that this is unprecedented territory, can't speak really, that we're all experiencing, right? So give ourselves some grace and just make sure you're paying attention is the only reason I really bring up screen time. Okay, so communicating with your student and giving emotional support. So reminding kids that this is not forever, but when they go back to school, they're going to need to wear pants, right? We're all going to have to put our pants back on. Some of us are wearing jammy pants, some of us are wearing sweats, right? So things will go back to normal. And I mean, my youngest does his work in his underwear because that's how he likes it, you know, but I know that we have to have a conversation. You know, this is going to go back to the way it was where you have to get dressed, right? Being calm and proactive, listening to your kids and addressing their concerns calmly. If they see you stressed out, it's going to make them stressed out, right? So maybe not watching all the news that's happening until they're in bed or until they're doing something else, right? Sticking to a routine because it really gives our kids structure, letting them feel their emotions. They're gonna feel lost, especially like when we were talking about the fact that some kids might not get their graduation. Some kids aren't getting prom, you know. Some kids had to cut their basketball season short and this is their senior year. You know, so all of those things are really impacting our kids. They're gonna feel lost and we really need to connect with them and talk to them about how they're feeling. Creating some welcome distractions. Like I was saying, there's a picture coming up here, I think in a couple slides, that was like, we should have Spirit Week at our house. Like everybody dresses crazy. You know, some fun distractions to make things a little bit more fun, have some escape time. And then monitoring your own behavior. Like I've said a few times, you know, our kids watch us and they watch how we respond to things and how we handle things. My 10-year-old, when he gets really upset, I'm like, yeah, that's me. I create that. That's exactly how I respond to things sometimes. So it's really true that, you know, the way that we respond to things, our kids really do watch us and how we respond. Okay. So a setup for success. The best system that works for your student is the one that works for your student. So setting up household routines, having regular cleanups, those are important routines that we have with our kids. They still need to learn how to use calendars. They're kind of on their own for a lot of things. For our older students, it's really important that they stay on task with those calendars. I know that in our district, they get those during the school year, so they know what's due and when it's due. But helping them organize their stuff, because of the fact that the work is now here, it looks different than it does at school, right? Because they usually hand it in. But how do you organize it and how do you keep it together so that when school goes back, that they're able to just easily hand that off, right? So different storage systems, way to file papers, like those paper bins. I can't use those because it ends up being just this huge pile of paper. So I have to have file folders. It's really about how your kids' brains work and what works best for them. And learning that skill really will help them in the long run anyway, especially when they get into college, if they decide that that's their path. That really gives them a leg up if they know how to organize themselves. And then checklists are so important. I use them like for vacation, y'all hopefully use them when we go to the store, but checklists are really important in getting our students to really learn how to do that at a younger age is really beneficial for them. Okay, support to the finish line. So teachers, like Andrea will tell you, she's getting a lot of emails. She's there to support her students and families. But checking your students' work to make sure that it's done, I have to do that because my younger one will just be like, oh, I'm done. I'm like, no, you're not done. So you need to look at it before they're really completed all their work. And then if there's things that you don't understand or you really need some clarification on, try to be concise. Like if you have multiple questions, you put that in one email instead of emailing 5 times in a day, right? But connect with teachers. Don't be afraid to ask questions. So important. Don't feel like they're judging you or that no question is a bad question. Oh, okay. So checklists would be like a to-do list, right? So what are all the things that you need to get, especially if you have an older student that they have, let's say they have a report that's due, a math test, and reading some information for English. So doing that, talk to your kids about their progress. Let them know how much they have done for the week and how much more they have left to do. When I do my morning check-in with my kids, they know what's expected of them for the day. And I think it really helps them to know what's expected because it's just like us as adults, right? If we're at work and then somebody, one of our superiors or someone else that we work with comes in and says, hey, can you do this? And they throw it on your desk. You're like, really? I didn't expect that. So it kind of derails us a little bit. It's the same thing for our kids, right? They really want to know what to expect. And then being consistent with them by checking in with them really shows that it's important to you. It shows them how important it is to you. And then if your student is really struggling and you're really struggling and you've contacted the teacher, maybe there's extra supports that need to come in. And so maybe connecting with the school counselor might be something that you need to do and pursue also, because you're still within reach of that, even though we're in the scenario we're in. So we have, I don't know if you feel this way, but when this first all happened, and we found out that we were going to be homeschooling, I got the first couple of, when this first happened, we had some organizations that were so gracious and saying, we're going to give out our platforms for free. And at first I was like, this is so great. And then it was like the floodgates opened and all of these organizations were like, we're going to give you all these free things. And I'm like, oh, it was overwhelming, right? So overwhelming. And for me, I was like, well, I don't even know where to start. So we have vetted some of these organizations I put on this slide, and I want to give you some tips when it comes to free resources. Sometimes free resources aren't really free. So if you go onto a site and they request you to put in credit card information, run away. Don't do it. Okay. If it's a free option, it will tell you the timeline that it's free. It will not ask you for financial information. So I would run away from that, okay? Some of the great ones on here, actually they're all great. All of these are really great options for kids.
Well, really just, this is brand new for a lot of us. And some families that have been homeschooling for a long time, I feel like I could learn a lot from them, and I don't have all the answers, and I'm trying stuff and, you know, doing it again or not doing it again, just depending on how it works out. So just mainly just, you know, be patient with yourself and with your kids and with your situation. I try to empower my kids by having them decide stuff and help us, you know, with the schedule. For spring break next week, we have quite a plan for what we're doing. The most exciting thing we're doing, get ready, we're having a 24-hour bathroom challenge. So we are staying in the bathroom for 24 hours. And there's some rules to that as well. So anyways, we're getting creative. I'm trying to empower the kiddos, trying to find places where we can have fun and laugh, and just enjoy each other. These moments we look back and kids aren't going to remember the fraction worksheet or how much writing they did. They're going to look back and remember when we laughed together, remember the games we played. So, and my tip is definitely just be patient and try to look for the moments to make memories. There's also a little blurb on here about, you know, free time. I try to limit my kids' free time, and it helps them want it more later. If they always get free time all day long, then it doesn't really give them something to work for. There were a couple comments in the chat about trying to motivate kids. That's tough anyways. I mean, as a fourth grade teacher, I've taught sixth grade too. I mean, motivating kids is one of the primary concerns and issues teachers have, classroom teachers. And it's no different when they're at home. When you're looking at trying to motivate kids, it's helpful to have something that they want to do, an incentive, whether it's video games or time with FaceTiming friends or coloring or whatever their incentive is. But Darcelina mentioned that, and that's important to structure that in and not always give them that free choice time. But be patient and hang in there and just make those memories and try to remember to laugh together.
Yeah, I actually thought, I wonder if there's a way for me to do like a escape room at my house. Like all of us are in an escape room. Like I wouldn't be the helper. I'd be the person who constructed it to see if they can get out. We've always wanted to do it, but it's really pricey for 4 people.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a cheap date.
Well,
so.
and one tip for escape rooms, I mean, if you want to kind of spend a little time, I use a website called Teachers Pay Teachers. It's a great resource, and you have to pay for a lot of stuff that's on there. Some stuff is free, but if you go to Teachers Pay Teachers and you type in escape rooms for math, and you can click your grade level, it'll have different escape rooms, and they're not much money. I mean, $3, $5, some of them are free. But that Teachers Pay Teachers is a really great resource to get learning materials and also learning activities for your kids.
I'm really glad that you were able to join us today. Otherwise, we hope you have a really good evening.